Mm. Mhm. All right. Welcome back to Marvel News Desk, your best place to keep up with all the latest news, reviews, and speculation concerning Marvel films and TV shows. It's Caleb, it's Adam, it's Rhiannon. We're also recording on people's lunch breaks. So we're just going to jump straight into the Marvel stuff. Hey, let's talk about Black Widow. How'd you guys like that movie?
I really liked it. I don't know. It's been fascinating to me to see the other reviews that come out. Caleb, I guess you didn't do your review last week. What did you think now that you've seen it?
Yeah. So first of all, we'll be full spoilers on stuff, guys. So that just be warned. First of all, I was amazed how much I disagree with you and Adam on the 5 questions we asked last week. Just like, to me, it is definitely a Marvel Bond movie. It had like Bond feel all over me. It's a secret agent. She's on the run. She even has her own Q, who's like a British guy who's giving her equipment and stuff. There was like a big Bond spy headquarters in the sky that blew up at the end. The villain could have been could have been one of the Jason Bourne villains, like Brian Cox, like the old like grizzled man in the suit, that runs the spy agency. I felt like it was a very much a spy movie, but
Sure. I mean, was it like a spy thriller? It was. I mean, they had aspects of it. I mean,
yeah.
It wasn't like. Well, they did pull out the face stuff, the Mission Impossible face thing.
Yeah.
They did that switcheroo. So I guess there was the undercover element.
Sure.
And to me, it also had a bit of vibes of the Daniel Craig Bond movies as far as like family melodrama and like going back into the character's past to try to like root them not just as a heartless assassin, but also someone who has a deep sense of feeling. Like, I think a lot of Daniel Craig Bond tropes were were into this movie. If I had to compare it to a Bond, I think it was most like a Daniel Craig Bond movie. So, but I thought it was fine. I mean, Rhiannon, you were exactly right. It's middle of the pack to me. I mean, so I was thinking about this last night and how I would hate talking about this because I'm going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I really like that it's a small adventure that is like on the other, like that's sort of a side mission. It's not like a big world ending apocalypse thing. And we've talked about how Marvel has to be able to scale back down to smaller movies and not just try to up Endgame, every movie. On the same hand, man, did it feel a little disconnected from the rest of the MCU. It's sort of like valid. And I think this may be dumb, as I don't know if this is really a fair criticism at all. I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more if it had like come out like between Civil War and Infinity War. Like if this had come out about the time Black Panther came out, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more because it would like fit into the time frame and it gave me more info about that time frame. Now going back, I'm a little like, okay, whatever. Like I struggle a little bit with prequels because they don't feel like they can be that significant if they don't have impact beyond what we've seen already in the movies, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. If it had happened in the timeline where it exists, it would have been better, without a doubt. And I agree with you on the like grounded. I hate to use the word grounded. It's almost like they made this movie and then it felt too grounded, so they did another airship, which I totally feel like we've seen twice now. Like it lost, to me, that was unoriginal, but it just felt like, oh, hey, yeah, it's the Marvel airship. Like whatever world these Marvel movies are in, at this point, they just have communities in the sky everywhere. I just assume at this point, Wakanda has a airship. We don't know about Australia has a random one for no reason. I just assume that this world that we're in now has random sky villages for no reason.
The Canadians do with Alpha Flight, undoubtedly. I do think it hurt too that the climax of Winter Soldier, which is the movie this is most compared to, is Captain America fighting a bad guy on an airplane that's getting blown out of the sky. And the, the climax of this movie was her fighting a bad guy on an airship that was blowing out of the sky. Like, I just don't think that helped it particularly, but
Yeah, that's what I'm with you there. And I think that's because, yeah, I was in the movie waiting for all of these third act flaws to emerge that everybody kept talking about. And I was like, well, I mean, like this is the same third act that Marvel gives in their movies. You have the big fight on the airship that's crashing and, things are exploding and things are happening. Like, and then like now that people have seen it, they've, told me their real issues with the third act. And I don't know. I mean, to me, it's a Marvel third act.
so I am interested in talking a little bit. This movie was about something much more than I ever expected this movie to be about something. To me, like that really startling line was when we said, I took advantage of the only natural resource the world has too much of, little girls. And I was just like, oh, like that was, I mean, I think it was very clear that Johansson on a producer role wanted this movie to be about the way women are exploited and mistreated. And like the villain was kind of like, I don't know, the villain was like toxic masculinity embodied into a Russian dude. And I kind of enjoyed that part of it. Like I did not see that coming, but I did feel like it was interesting. And I liked, there was a lot less punching than I thought there would be, but I think that's because her face to face and trying to outwit Russian mustache man was, I enjoyed that a lot. I found all that stuff to be really fascinating.
I did too. And I liked that there was action that wasn't punching. I mean, the whole helicopter saving and avalanche, that to me was exciting enough. Like there were punches, I guess, happening in the prison. But the prison, like to me, that was action that added to the tension without being unnecessary. I don't know. It just seemed enjoyable.
You were certainly correct, Adam, that there was not a whole lot of action beats that we did not see in the trailer. I think some of that's because we got like 3 trailers and they advertised this movie for 2 years. But also, I felt like it was a little light. It's weird because the action was good, but it was a little light. Like there just wasn't a lot of it, I don't feel like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really have much more to add to that. Or on Black Widow as a whole, I watched it again and yeah, whatever. Sure. No, yeah, every single I watched for it and I don't think much. I can't remember one action scene that wasn't at least teased in the trailer. Same with Taskmaster. Of course, the unmasking things weren't in the trailer. But outside of that, everything else was. And apparently, there's a substantial amount of discourse surrounding that villain on Twitter today. So I'm probably going to stay away from that one because some people think it's the best character ever. Whatever. But,
I mean,
yeah,
I think it's worth us talking a little bit. They certainly have reshaped Taskmaster in a way that is very different from the comic books. I mean, frankly, on a spoiler level, like it's just a different identity, a different person who is Taskmaster. I feel like they purposely soft pedaled whether it was natural ability or a chip. I feel like it was maybe a computer chip in Taskmaster's brain.
They did the heads up display thing where it was like tracking our emotions or whatever. So I assumed it's just the technology. But even then, I mean, you could take Taskmaster out of the movie and it won't change the movie one bit.
Oh yeah, because in classic Bond style, this is like the Taskmaster was sort of like the Jaws villain. Like if you've watched Bond movies, sometimes there's like even an iconic villain, but they're not really, they're just a big henchman. Like they're just a big thing to punch, but they really don't have a whole lot of agency in those movies other than henchmen. So, okay. We're finishing lunch here with one person. So do you want to wave real quick? A big surprise to people. They can actually see a kiddo real quick. Come here. Look your head in.
Enjoy lunch.
Peanut butter and jelly, man. Classics. All right, go play with your
Yeah.
sisters. Yeah, I didn't. I know you didn't see that there. I could tell by the way you kicked my microphone. Um, so, anyways, yeah, I mean, Rhiannon is somebody who doesn't have the same Taskmaster like lifelong love. I'm sure that some people do. Did you enjoy that villain turn or?
Yeah, I mean, knowing nothing about Taskmaster, so like I have no idea what I was supposed to expect as far as what skills or whatever Taskmaster has. So if I just look at Taskmaster as here's the villain that we were given for this movie, I liked it. I mean, and like Taskmaster wasn't the villain. Dreykov, I guess, was the villain. So the fact that it turned out that this character ended up being Dreykov's daughter, villainized after something Natasha did to free herself from the Red Room, I enjoyed that connective thread. I enjoyed that twist. I enjoyed what they did of that, like how Taskmaster got her skills. I mean, how did any of the widows get their skills? I just assumed it was another widow programming thing. And then whatever from that suit that gave additional skills and the mind and whatever the mind programming dust. Like, here's the thing, the one point that if I had to think about these plot points, if I had gotten chunks of them and a week to think about them in between, I would not have enjoyed this story at all. I just
Talking
want to
about
put that
TV
out there.
shows versus movies. If this had been a 6-hour TV show, you would have been in trouble.
No, if this had been a 6-hour TV show, it wouldn't hold up. But because it's like, okay, here's Taskmaster, but it disappears, and then here's the next part of it, and okay, it's all resolved. I didn't have to think about it much. I could just be along for the ride, and it was enjoyable.
Yeah.
But if I had been forced to just sort of dwell on it for a week at a time, this would not have been an enjoyable story. But as a movie, it was enjoyable.
My favorite thing was that every time they showed us the widows, they were just pacing back and forth in that one room. I'm like, oh, I guess this is how you train assassins. You just make them walk from one end of the room to the other, do a cool little turnaround, and then walk back,
To me, there was imagery of that and them being sort of like caged animals or treated like caged animals.
Right.
That the pacing just sort of made sense to me. And the train. I mean, like I didn't expect to really see them training. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess they were just sort of training, walking back and forth. But I don't know. I was okay with them not boring me with a whole lot of widow training. I liked that we just had a quick montage of, here's how the widows are stolen and trained and groomed and raised or whatever. The whole Nirvana cover thing to sort of get you through. Here's what the Red Room is.
Yeah.
I liked them just glossing over that. I didn't want a whole lot of like seeing intensive Red Room training in this movie.
And we didn't have to like redo everything we've seen in Age of Ultron all over again. So
You bring up Nirvana. I told Villanueva this. The way that cover was and how it was shot with like the credits and stuff, I told him I was surprised the "you won't steal a car" thing didn't pop up like the anti-piracy ad. I can't remember if we've talked about this before, but that was very 90s anti-piracy. You wouldn't steal whatever it is. I don't even remember what it was at the beginning of DVDs or something, right?
Oh,
I
there's
don't
like an
know.
old PSA you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, it looked exactly like it.
So this Adam, maybe you can write an article about this if you need an extra one. Uh, do we have is Black Widow the first mutant in the MCU? Like, it's a bit of a stretch, but they did say that like they selected her based on her genetic potential as a baby. And so it's sort of imbued her with superpower. Like, no, you're not just an average Joe that got trained to be an assassin. We checked your genetic code and you are genetically predispositioned to be a better spy than anybody else would be. Which I don't, it's like a very low latent form of mutancy, but it is like a DNA based superpower, kind of, isn't it?
I mean, our NFL athletes mutants or our Olympians mutants or something
Yeah,
like
is
Oh,
that?
Michael
You know.
Phelps a mutant?
he is. If you ever seen the way that that man's body is put together, he's as close to Aquaman as we're ever getting.
So I don't know. That's exhausting just thinking about it. So I'm gonna pass. Thanks for the idea. I am going to pass on that. Oh man.
Oh,
Caleb stretching.
that'll get you
Keep
some
No.
clicks,
stretching.
man. Black Widow is the first MCU mutant. People have tried to click that to figure out what's going on.
Go ahead, tweet it, man. You'll go viral. Sorry.
We're recording early for Adam.
We are, man. It is early. It is the ass crack of dawn. Around these parts, it is about 4 a.m. where I'm at. So we're recording super early. I'm not, it's actually noon. So
I was
It's
like,
not true at
Adam
all.
snuck off to like the Philippines or somewhere. I don't know.
you don't know where I am. You don't know where I
It's
am.
true. He just
Look how
carries those
good-
bookshelves with him.
No, green screen, man.
Oh,
This
okay.
green screen is sublime.
Adam, I would love to talk about Red Guardian a minute. I think you got a
Hilarious.
great kick out of him.
Yeah,
You wanted to talk about
absolutely.
jokes last week too. What were the jokes that
Mhm.
you were so interested in talking about?
Well, the helicopter crash, the most perfect editing I think I've ever seen. Where it's like, we'll make it crash.
Yeah.
And it was just so jarring because like 2 lines before, Florence Pugh literally said that they scooped out her body parts, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell's this movie about? They would take that and then instantly inject levity into it, and it was created this really weird mismatch. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, the jokes mainly landed for me. It's just weird that they decided to balance the super super dark mind control type stuff with it,
Yeah.
um
But I
That
do think that was an interesting way because a friend of mine like had concerns of taking her child and was asking like, how do they deal with the forced sterilization part of it? And I was like, well, I mean, that was an interesting take on how to talk about it, but not really talk about it.
right.
yeah, I felt like it was, to me, it's black comedy, like it's dark, taking something horrific and just kind of making jokes about it. And I don't know, in our theater, I felt like there was a little bit of discomfort at that moment where like people are like, oh, is that something that we can actually make jokes about? And given how, generally not edgy Marvel is about stuff, I just found myself, it's kind of like the Jackson Pollock joke in Guardians of the
Mhm.
Galaxy, where I was like, I'm surprised that made it through the, Disney filters and the let's make a great PG-13 movie. And for me, and we talked about this a little bit on Twitter, I really do think it's the darkest MCU movie. Like some of that montage during the opening credits with them like pulling girls out of like shipping trailer, like stuff. I don't know. I was sitting there, having my 11-year-old next to me, and I was like, I don't know if she's ready for this. Like, this is some pretty heavy real world stuff that they're kind of going into.
For
See,
sure.
and it was so weird to me when you talked about that. Like I had to. So for me, that montage was making that super dark thing that we knew this movie had to cover in some way, and glossing over it as best they could. I feel like they did a really good job with the levity of it, with the soundtrack, with just sort of showing it all happening without, and putting some feel to it, but not dwelling, not saying that part out loud, but then they said that other part out loud. So I, but I, like the movie as a whole to me was very light. Like it had these deep topics. And I think, Caleb, this might be interesting where you look at the overall subject matter and it gives you the feeling of the heaviness and denseness. And I'm like literally looking at the show itself.
Yeah.
Like for me, there was something about the white uniforms, the snow, that to me, being in the clouds, that made the whole movie feel lighter, even though it was an intense subject matter.
Yeah. To me, my filter is, what question am I going to get asked in the car on the way home from a child? Right. And so like just anticipating like, so I know like they were part of the secret police, but what were all those other girls in there? Like, where did they get all those girls? And like, I have to now explain that human trafficking exists for children the age of my kids. Like, that is, I think, where it really like struck home to me of like, oh, this could be an interesting, ride home conversation.
So when you got to the ride home, did she remember that part of it?
No, I mean, it was enough of, and this is to your point, it was enough of a fun Marvel movie that, she was talking more about like the action stuff. I will say that both my wife and daughter, there were quite a bit of tears, like some of that dinner table scene where like Yelena talks about how real it was to her and that family was real to her. Like I heard sobs going on like to my right as we watched that, which is interesting to me. It didn't hit me quite that way, but I think I'm always interested in how my daughter and my wife respond to this stuff, because they are some of the general audience that Marvel is trying to appeal to beyond just old comic book people like me.
I cried exactly twice when watching it. Once when we got the Marvel flip through, and it was just like, I'm in a movie theater.
Yeah.
Marvel movie. Yeah. A little tear escaped. And the post-credit scene, it pulled a tear to my eye.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but I thought she was going to the mom's grave, which doesn't make sense because she had a different mom, right? But like that's what I thought it was. And then when I saw it was Nat's grave, I was like, oh duh. Oh, it took me back a minute.
Yeah, I have to give them props for it because they couldn't get me. Like, I didn't even remember Nat died at the end of Endgame. When they're like, she would have been proud or whatever that line was at Tony's little memorial thing. I didn't remember her, but when they showed the tombstone, I was like, oh, and just like a little tear.
Yeah.
So they got me to cry over Nat.
It's so insane how much the MCU is like comics. Because I mean, what? So now we knew she was in Hawkeye, but apparently she might be like the primary antagonist.
Yeah.
Of Hawkeye. So like it's insane. It's not going to be, eventually they're going to have to reboot with the new number ones and stuff, But I mean, this stuff it's getting tied in pretty together.
Yeah.
I mean, it always has been, but between every Disney Plus show so far setting up something else, kind of quitting the show cold turkey.
And having Julia Louis-Dreyfus move between them, I think helps that a lot too.
Yeah.
Like that was a great connective tissue.
Right. I would assume she's going to be the new Thunderbolt Ross. I'm not sure. We'll see. Is William Hurt going to be in anything else? Since they're already established. I'm also have questions about Ross's jurisdiction. It's like, what was he doing when the Red Room collapsed?
Well, we don't know where it collapsed. The fact that he found it so quickly was also fascinating. Like, didn't even have to get on a plane. He was at a Howard Johnson around the corner.
Right. That's why, like, just chilling out the Hojo, man. Where was I don't know. That's petty little stuff. That we'll get a bad review for. Whatever. I mean, the post credit. I mean, it was a delight. Of course, it was spoiled for me beforehand. But it's still fun. I was They told me there was a dog in it. I'm like, oh, Lucky, but it wasn't Lucky.
Yeah. I had to say that my favorite joke, when Allegra walks up next to her and goes, I'm sorry, I'm just allergic to the Midwest. Like, I laughed so hard, and I guess I was the only one in our theater, but the way that it shows her disdain for anything like normal and down to earth and decent it was perfect. It's something I would expect Elaine Bennis to say when she's in her 50s, you know?
Yeah, so this was in Ohio, right? Ohio's part of the Midwest. Is Ohio now Midwest? It's kind of out on its own there. I don't know.
I have a friend from Ohio, and she very, very much claims the Midwest as her culture.
That's because they need something. Ohio's one of those where it's not quite Midwest. It's not quite Appalachia. It's not quite.
Yeah,
It's got to go somewhere.
I would compare her more to my friend. I mean, like my friend from Wisconsin, like they're like the type of food they lean towards, the
Cheese,
farm, and ruralness. It fits. She seems Midwestern to me, but that's one person.
As a Michigander, I always said the Midwest is like Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota. To me, Iowa, like I get why people call it, but like Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, I always think of those as the plains states. You know, like they are a little beyond Midwest.
How is Minnesota Midwest and Iowa isn't?
Because it's further. Well, that's true. I mean, Minnesota is just north of Iowa, isn't it? So
yeah,
I can go.
I mean, people tried to say Oklahoma was the Midwest.
No, see, now that's plains. That Kansas, Nebraska. Yeah. I mean, nobody lives in Nebraska, so that's just whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry to all of our listeners that live in Nebraska. It's just whatever. Then you get past Lincoln, there's nothing out there.
Nothing. All right. Do you guys have any other Black Widow thoughts? We've done an excellent job of wrapping this up in a half hour. No. Did you guys have any other thoughts on that stuff?
No, I'm just really happy. I mean, I'm pleasantly surprised by the movie. And I mean, just like my final thought on all of it is this just, you know, what I went into earlier. It works so much as a movie, like the Marvel concept and their depth of story and everything works as movies. So I hope they figure out that rhythm, what works for television. And I'll leave you guys to talk about television.
Yeah.
Cinemas are back though, man. Black Widow brought the box office back. 13 mil last night. Better than certain movies from the distinguished competition.
It also
it's on norm with all other Marvel movies, right? For previews at least.
Yeah. It also struck me as a perfect opener to phase 4, as far as this is a great on-ramp of a movie. Like if you have avoided the MCU and never watched one, I would have no concern sending my totally Marvel illiterate friends to see this, and they could pick it up and be cool with it. You know, like they really did not make this one hard to get onto. So
right. It doesn't go anywhere, but you know, save for the post-credit scene. But I smell what you're stepping in. You don't need to watch a dozen things beforehand. 20 things.
Yeah.
All right. I'm peacing out. Bye, guys.
Bye, Rhiannon. All right. I'm going to go ahead and take us live here. Just take a minute.
Uh-oh. Popeye's embargo.
Ooh. So you're being... Well, I can edit out the recording.
I won't say what it is. There's a Popeye's embargo coming, guys.
Ooh, Popeyes is making something new.
They are, and I'm hyped.
Share to my group, and my group is Marvel News Desk Patreon group.
In terms of fast food chicken, I'm not sure anyone does it as well as Popeyes.
Oh, so we actually ate Popeyes.
Raising Cane's. What's the difference between chicken fingers and chicken tenders?
So
I suppose.
My problem is I went last night actually to Popeyes after Black Widow,
Mhm.
and I don't know. We have really inconsistent quality at Popeyes here. Sometimes I go through a Popeyes in Rhode Island and I get a great sandwich. And last
Mhm.
night it was overdone so much so that like some of the meat had sort of gotten like hard and crunchy and you couldn't tell what was
Mm.
meat and what was like
Ready?
coating.
Right. Yeah.
Like it was just a
Hmm.
mess. And that's where I would say even a McDonald's, like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A, they may not have like the best of the best there. May not be, particularly with McDonald's, is not great, but I know I'm not going to get a crummy sandwich. Half the time I go through Popeyes, I get garbage. Like I'm sad that I paid for it. They're just so inconsistent.
Yeah, I feel you, but that's the joy of life. Just take the chance and shake things up. Nothing good's ever come from a comfort zone. So it
All
is
right.
it is what it is.
I
But
think
chicken
we are,
tenders, yeah.
yeah, we're live. We're cool. All right. So Adam, let's talk about Loki episode 5.
Mhm.
We got to, first of all, the very first thing, the first line was like, we're about to be eaten by Elithar or whatever that thing is called.
Goliath,
Yeah,
Goliath, yeah.
Eliath, and we're in the void. And I just heard it real quickly as we're about to get attacked by the void. And I was like, what? Sentries in this show? Like I literally paused it 10 seconds in and rewound to make sure that that was not a big sentry drop, but it was not.
It was not,
Nonetheless.
or is it?
Oh,
Did old Rob create this world somehow? Is Rob in the castle, or is it Doctor Doom or Kang?
how
Or
has nobody suggested that the castle is run by sentry because the void is the outside of the castle?
now that is a piece I'll write about.
There you
BRB.
go.
I will. I'll type that one up. None of this
I expect
Black
to
Widow
see
stuff.
that before Wednesday.
You'll see it tonight, probably, if things are this slow. Um, yeah, man. I don't know. I don't think you asked the question. I think that was just an. I had a similar thought. I mean, I think the episode name was called The Void, or it was like in the description or something. And when it was like the and void were both capitalized, and I'm like,
Void, what?
yeah, interesting. But alas, it's not. Will we get Sentry? I don't know. I mean, how how many Superman type characters can we have? We already have Captain Marvel. We'll probably get Blue Marvel. We'll
Oh,
probably Are we going to get Sentry? Are we going to get Gladiator?
right.
I would sacrifice the whole entire MCU to get Starjammers versus like the Imperial Guard or something, and Gladiator and all that stuff. How many of those characters can we get? I would love Sentry, like just really dark Black Hammer-esque series, involving Rob on the farm or something like that, and then just getting into a story with flashbacks. But
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. It's yeah, it's sorry, I lost my train of thought.
it has nothing to do with Loki, but just Century News Desk. There
Yeah,
we
yeah,
go.
no, yeah. It's well, you were saying like how many of those characters can we get? Based on seeing Red Guardian and Black Widow, we're going to get a million caps. Like
Right.
the MCU went from this formula worked once to, oh no, there's about half a dozen times somebody figured out the super soldier forum formula in about 3 months, like that was part of that movie that bothered me. Actually, it was like, where did Red Guardian come from?
That's true. That's true. And in less than a month, or almost a month and 2 days, we will get the British Captain America as well.
Yeah.
So here comes Captain Canuck. Here comes who else? All sorts of other people.
So when we look at Loki, to me, it was the exact opposite of what we just said with Black Widow. We said Black Widow was an awesome on ramp. Loki episode 5 was fan service beyond fan service. It was just
Right.
like, it was just Easter egg after Easter egg after Easter egg. And I think it's fun. Like, I think it's fun that Marvel can put out two things like that within 2 days of each other. that are that vastly different. And it's cool to me that they do reward people that want to see. I mean, I was joking about Throg last week, but like actually seeing Throg and the living tribunal statue or whatever that was out there. Uh it's really weird. There's a giant yellow jacket helmet. And then we hear news that like Yellow Jacket's showing up in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I think it's great. I don't know. To me, it was fun that Marvel went ahead and just did something that had that many Easter eggs and that many like, oh, look at that stuff in it, you know?
Yeah, and this circles back to the whole comic aspect of it. You know, these writers, this writer's room can put all of this stuff in there, and some writer along the line can pick up the piece and say, so this may be nothing, or it's something, you know, whether it's a plot device or whether it's a show. Maybe there's actually going to be a show about Kang Enterprises, which we thought was the Avengers Tower, but it's a direct Kang thing, which we may or may not get. Thanos Copter, you know, Thanos Copter was in there. What else? You know, it's just it's nothing as of now, you know, but it could be something, you know, with the MCU, you know, who knows, right? Anyone can get their own show, anything can be on there. I assumed we were going to get Throg in a bigger role, either in like Love and Thunder stuff, maybe Love and Thunder, you know, he'll be in Love and Thunder. But I would call it like I mean, it was a filler episode in the terms of Easter eggs. Yeah, it's why not, man? We've watched how many hours of Marvel content now? Why? That's also one of my pet peeves. This is now a new path. I just created a Nexus event, so bear with me for 1 second. I don't like when people think fan service is bad. Why is fan service bad, man? You know how much money I've spent on movie tickets and merchandise and toys and all this stuff. Give me what the hell I want, you know, give you what the hell you want. Give us what the hell we want. What's wrong with that? So fan service is not bad. And anyone who says it is wrong. And that's objective and not an opinion.
I mean, I would say in this place, it totally made sense. Like the Void is a place that you should see weird peculiarities and you should see things from other universes. And it's brilliant because they don't have, as you said, they can pick up continuity later. Like they can send Yellow Jacket into the quantum realm spinning, and the post credits can be him landing in the void and growing big and then getting decapitated. Like, you know, like they can connect that if they want, or they cannot. And the void totally allows that because it can be just some random junk from a multiverse, or it can be something that matters. And to me, that's the place to do it. And they did it the right way, that it's Easter egg stuff. I think the problem would come, you know, if they got there and Loki's like, the secret to all of this is that we have to appeal to the living tribunal. And that was like a out of left field plot twist that doesn't make sense to someone who's watching the show that doesn't know comics. That's where I think you get in trouble because it alienates new viewers. Whereas here, if you don't know those Easter eggs, you just go, oh, look, that's some cool looking crap on the screen. And that's all you need.
Right. Oh, what the hell was I going to say? I was going to say something. I forgot.
So I do have a major fan theory for this week. This is my official Caleb theory. We're talking about who's in the castle, right? This is the big mystery. And a lot of people think we're going to get Kang. And to me, the problem with Kang is that there is a lot to explain or describe if you're just going to introduce him out of nowhere. The fastest way to get Kang in this is you spent all season getting people used to the concept of variants. They're just going to make Kang a Loki variant. Sure. Kang is like the king of Loki variants, who's taken on another. You already have Sylvie or Enchantress, who is a Loki who has a totally different identity. We've already had Boastful Loki, who's a black man who's Loki. Like, so they've already done all the hurdles that you'd have to do. And I'm sure some of the fans would freak out about it, but it would be an easy way to give us Kang in this universe and to describe it in a way that they can do in 10 seconds without having to like give us 10 minutes of exposition in a final episode to make it work. And so I'm starting to think that we're going to get Kang, and Kang is a Loki.
Interesting. That's combining the two prevailing fan theories then
Yeah.
into one. I like that. I like that. I also like that keeping them separate and having Renslayer as a Kang variant. But Renslayer could also be a Loki variant as well. I like that.
Or Renslayer is a Mobius variant.
Or Mobius is a Loki variant.
Yeah.
Which I don't. Yeah, I mean, what I don't. I get they should have probably set the groundwork for Kang by now if Kang was going to be in the show, but this show still kind of bends its rules.
Yeah.
What else did they go through this week? Like the whole explanation of the Void and stuff about how the Void is still being written by the timekeepers, even though we saw the timekeepers were fake and all this stuff. Throw him in there. I mean, we know he's coming. We know he was cast in time to film certain stuff. At this rate, I would be very, very surprised he's not in it. In fact, if he's not in it, it's going to come out 1 or 2 months from now, like they did with Doctor Strange and WandaVision, how he was supposed to be in it and wasn't, and was cut out because of COVID restrictions or something. You know.
To me, it's about clever writing too. We just rewatched Age of Ultron the other day, and there's a part where they're trying to describe like what Wanda and Pietro are, and then Maria Hill goes, "He's really fast and she's really weird," and it was like, oh, that's perfect. Like that is just, and that's a great line that makes the reader, like makes the viewer comfortable. And it leaves some unanswered questions, but it gets you caught up. I could almost see if they do introduce Kang, they're like, who are you? How did you get this power? And he just looks at Sylvan and he goes, in the same way that you put yourself in an apocalypse for years and years and years to fight the TVA, I've been doing that for millennia. And I have gained so much power doing it. And you go, oh, okay. Awesome. Like that would be plenty, I think, to like make people comfortable. So
I'd be down with that.
Generally, as the show has progressed, do you find yourself liking it more? Because like I think what's interesting to me is that I was telling the family last night, Loki was my third favorite of the Disney Plus shows so far until this week. And the more that they just lean into the weirdness and just accept that that's what they are, the more that I have appreciated it. Like it's gotten its own flavor to me.
Yeah, the further you get away from black leather costumes and grounded storylines and dragon LED lights, the better I'm gonna like it. Compared to last week, I did like last week a lot better than I did like this week. I guess I don't really have any reason why, because they went full bonkers, man. We got the Void, we got Eliath, we got President Loki, we got a dozen other Lokis, and that one scene where they all turn on each other is peak Loki and absolutely hilarious.
And the alligator just like chewing arms off.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, there was zero blood in that scene either, so that's the thing. You could rip the whole arm off so long as there's no blood. I'm liking Loki a lot, man. I don't know if I want to rate it, because I mean, I do hate to bring up the F word, but finales, man. Finales, yeah. I don't think I've liked a Disney Plus finale yet.
Loki. For me, Loki will be, if they really do a great job this week, I will like it more than Falcon and Winter Soldier. And if they don't do a great job this week, it'll probably still be my third favorite of the Disney Plus shows. So
Right. So I mean, let's see by that. I mean, on the press tour leading up to this, Waldron said something about hiring Bisha Ali to do the time traveling rules and stuff, and they haven't really even introduced time traveling rules. You know, have they? I mean, all they do is when a timeline pops up, they send it to the void, and that's their time traveling rules, I guess.
Yeah. It was
Um,
interesting, the idea that when they prune, that they can't uncreate matter, right? Like that's a rule of
mhm,
physics that, like, matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, it just converts. And so the idea of sending it to the end of time, it actually reminds me of the way that Miss Marvel, technically in the comics now, like her power is time traveling. When she embiggens, she just borrows mass from another point in the timeline where she shrunk and gave mass. If that makes
mhm.
any sense. People hate that. I think it's awesome. I just love that like bonkers explanation. But
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll see how the finale goes before I rank it. I
yeah.
hated the WandaVision finale,
Yeah.
as everyone already knows. So yeah, let's wait a week and then we can do a ranking. But so far, it's killer, man. I am getting growingly concerned. Hiddleston's time in the role is coming to an end because they're doing a lot of stuff where Loki season 2 doesn't need him. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see why he wouldn't do it. He seems dedicated to the role and all that stuff, but at the same time, he is with no more RDJ or ScarJo or Chris Evans. You know, Hiddleston's probably the biggest name the MCU has, unless I'm forgetting some major person moving forward. Um,
Yeah. I think the idea that he hands it down to that kid Loki and that kid
mhm.
Loki joins the Young Avengers, to me, that would be totally on the track of where I feel like this is going. So
Right. I mean, classic Loki's gone, or is he? You know, maybe those we've seen the TVA prune people and they get sent to the void. So maybe whatever Eliath does something, you know, and they get sent to wherever. But yeah, Kid Loki, Sylvie. Um, we'll see. I mean, this is the one show we've seen so far that can definitely have a season 2. I have no idea what's planned. You know, it sounds like the TVA's out the window, or maybe Enchantress leads the TVA or something of that nature. Um, that's in the future, man. They've got to be working on so much stuff. I just want one leaked photo of a whiteboard, you know, just
yeah.
one hack. I'm not telling you to hack, all right, but if one of those pictures popped up on Reddit, I would look at it, you know, just
Yeah.
see what's coming up. Loki season 2 is probably one of those things,
Yeah.
as is
I,
the Daredevil trilogy, but you know,
I did enjoy I've liked the romantic relationship because I have been convinced that I guess it is. I just love how it's just complicated. Like you can tell
mhm,
these two people are connected in a deep way, but the writers I feel like have done an awesome job of saying, is it friendship? Is it romantic? Is it something else? Yeah, it's complex. They know that they like each other in a significant way, but defining what that looks like or means is something that they don't know how to do and they don't know where that's headed. And that just feels authentic to me, like it feels like they're writing two people actually getting to know each other instead of forcing them into like a Hollywood best friend trope or a Hollywood dating couple trope or whatever,
mhm.
you know.
Loki's the one character that can do this,
Yeah.
you know, so why wouldn't they do it? Is it romantic? Is it just a friendship? Who knows? We'll probably never know. I mean, I'm assuming it's romantic, and people were sending death threats last week to the shippers, but I mean, what I don't think it's if you think it's gross, I always go back to it. Look at Loki's story in Norse mythology. Look at any mythology, man. Read about Zeus and what Zeus has done. You know, read about Loki and Loki's animal children. You know, it's weird. Those people are weird, man. Whoever wrote those stories are weird. Weird
Yeah.
stuff. Disturbed. Just imagine if they had like Rob Liefeld to do the art or something. You know,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, whatever. I don't
Well,
think we'll ever get an answer to whether or not it's romantic. So then that's probably going to be the next thing where people get upset that we don't get that answer. Or maybe they kiss. What happens if they kiss? What's going to happen if they kiss?
The world is going to blow up. You know, there's just going to be fire. No, yeah, nothing.
How many MCU kisses have we gotten? Stephen
Uh,
Peggy and Endgame, right?
so Stephen Peggy kiss. Oh, they've done First Avenger. Hulk and Betty Ross. Tony and Gwen Paltrow. Jane Foster and Thor. Like there's kisses in every phase 1 movie, I think. I think we may get one in Ultron between Black Widow and Hulk. There's one between Ant-Man and Wasp and Ant-Man and the Wasp. There's one between Peter and MJ in No Way Home. So I don't know, somewhat frequent.
So it's not a new thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd imagine that's a Nexus event.
I am still of the belief that genetically speaking, Loki is totally different than Sylvie. He is the child of Lawfully and some frost giant woman, and she is a kid from a totally different civilization, and they both were adopted and they were both named Loki, and that is the limit to how similar they are. So to me, it's not that weird.
Interesting. But even if she was Loki, you know, I don't think it's that weird because it's Loki. He's a trickster. He's I don't know. It's not that big a deal, people. It's television. Stop sending death threats.
It's make believe. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. One more thing I wanted to talk about quickly because we got a trailer for it. What'd you think of that What If trailer?
Shuma Gorath, man. That's all we need. Shuma. We got Shuma Gorath. Maybe. I mean, it makes sense. There's absolutely nothing in the trailer that could have spoiled Loki. I mean, episode 5 didn't reveal anything.
Yeah.
Special. So I'm just curious to know the decision behind it. I mean, Netflix drops trailers for their stuff the week before, 2 weeks before. If we get something for Netflix a month, I'm not sure they ever have done something a month beforehand. Well, you know, so the timeline for streaming stuff is a lot a quicker cycle and much more intense because you don't have to plan to go out to the theater or you don't have to buy tickets or anything like that, you know.
Well, and I should say I think I screwed up understanding this a little bit because I was thinking that we hadn't seen a first trailer, but looking back at the way they talked about it back in December, the look they gave us in December, they talked about the same way they talked about the Falcon and Winter Soldier stuff that was effectively the first trailer. So I think in Marvel's minds, they gave us the first trailer in December. And this is the second trailer. And this being 5 weeks out is exactly when Disney Plus drops second trailers. So.
Yep. I don't have, they didn't really reveal them. What did they, we had teases of Howard the Duck before, I think.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a big reveal. I mean, the tentacles were a pretty big reveal. I'm trying to think of.
I mean, the biggest thing to me that was a surprise was so there seems to be crossover. Like Captain Carter is in a scene with Dark Doctor Strange.
Yep.
And they're talking. And then there's that like Avenger shot where we see like someone as Black Panther, and then we see Gamora with Thanos's helicopter blade. And we see T'Challa Star-Lord, and we see like Party Thor all together. And that seems to suggest to me that I thought each of these would be like standalone stories, but there seems to be maybe that this thing is going to lead to maybe a team up story where like characters from different What If universes get together. I think the Shuma Gorath thing is interesting because that could be like the big bad almost. Like each of these seasons might be a phase that leads to a team up, which is not at all what I anticipated. I really just think every week would be standalone. And so if that's true, that to me adds an interesting fresh wrinkle to what's going on.
Oh, for sure. I do. I think you brought it up. Maybe is if they'd release them all at once, and I would guess that's probably out the window by now. Um,
Yeah, timing will be interesting because they've told us there's about 10 of them,
mhm.
and it starts August 11th. If they do them one at a time, they're really jamming themselves up on Miss Marvel and Hawkeye at the end of the year. So I'm wondering if maybe it's shorter, maybe they do 2 a week, like we'll get 5 weeks of the
Right.
show and we'll get 2 each week.
Right.
That's not based on knowledge in any way. I'm just, because if you do
I'm
it the other way, the
right.
calendar gets so condensed for them, you know.
Right. I do think Hawkeye is probably going to be 21, 22 combined as well. I don't think they'll squeeze in Hawkeye um, before the end of the year, all 6 episodes before the end. I mean, I think they're just waiting for Spider-Man to drop, just for reasons. Um, before Hawkeye premieres, or maybe there's a certain episode that ties into Spider-Man somehow, some way, shape, or form. Plus, we've seen it's set around Christmas too.
Yeah.
So, um,
Well, and we've said it would be awesome. I've said, like, I think it'd be great if Hawkeye could somehow combine in a way that you see something on Hawkeye on Wednesday that you're like, oh, what is that? And then you see it explained on Friday when you go see Spider-Man. And then the next Wednesday they pick up, like, that's fun. I'm super here for that. That's kind of what they did at the very earliest days of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that I would love to see again. So,
and I mean, we'll get there eventually. It's a matter of time. There's no doubt in my mind that they'll eventually do it. This quick would surprise me, but it's totally not out of the question. We're not going to get any more delays, save for um, some act of God or something like that. I think most studios are probably super comfortable with sending stuff back out into theaters. The Spider-Man marketing cycle, that's a completely monster nobody can even understand or analyze or anything like that, because that's just they've just totally broken all norms by now. But they're not going to move that movie. So as long as I don't. Mandalorian was 2 years, right? Or not 2 years, but December, January, right?
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I was only noting that, like, starting August 11th, there's 21 Wednesdays left.
Mhm.
So that's not enough to do 10 what ifs, 6 Miss Marvels, and
Those
6
and 6
Hawkeyes,
Hawkeyes.
unless it goes in, and it could cross over. But as you said, we did see, who knows if that matters. I was about to say we saw like holiday scenes in Hawkeye's filming, but the flip side of that is we saw a big trick-or-treating scene in WandaVision that came out in March. So who cares?
It is also interesting that Marvel Studios can't get anything it wants as well. They didn't get RDJ, Chris Evans, Brie Larson, and Del Toro back, and someone else, Cumberbatch, back to voice their animated characters.
Yeah, I feel like I think Vision's in
Different,
that
yeah.
trailer, and it was not Paul Bettany.
Right. It didn't sound like it, but I thought they said something. Variety has a list of who's in it, and they included Howard the Duck in it, but then they included um RDJ in that group. That's not reprising it. It could be schedule stuff. I mean, it's more than likely contract stuff, and they just either couldn't pay enough or something. I mean, I don't see RDJ doing voice stuff, I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Well, and I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Brie Larson, no, but like Chris Evans and RDJ, it may be that those are guys that, as far as they were concerned, finished their time. Like that. I don't know that this was such a sprawling part of their lives that for like emotional closure, you kind of need this feeling like it's over. I don't have to do this again, So
Right. Yeah, I mean, totally. I don't see why not. And I mean, I don't see What If being a super, super big moneymaker. I mean, I would guess, even though it's Disney still has budgets to stick with, especially after the crappy year everyone just had. and Disney
Yeah.
laid off a substantial amount of people. So there's still budgets and things like that.
And they've figured out on the Star Wars side, like they don't get Samuel L. Jackson back or Ewan McGregor back to do most of their Star Wars cartoons. And the Star Wars fans just love the animated voice cast and they're fine with them. So this What If does strike me as subscription renewal guarantee. Like What If to me is the spackling that they like put onto the wall for whatever part of the calendar year that they don't have a show like out ready to go. They're like, oh, we've got a gap in August. Oh, throw What If in there, and that way people can't get rid of their subscription. That's maybe kind of cynical, but
I mean, they're treating it from the consumer product stuff. They're treating it like a normal show. Man,
Yeah.
we've already seen the Funko Wave. I think this month's collector core box is What If, isn't it?
yeah,
Or it's coming soon. Sorry if that's spoiling your guys' boxes or something.
no. That's the way it's been advertised on Amazon. So
Right. So I do think it will be a lot more connected than we think. I mean, I do believe it's entirely canon. My colleague Charlie Ridgely brought this up, and I'm gonna hate to see it not happen, but he was wondering if the Watcher is somehow involved in Loki, like if Jeffrey Wright pops
Oh.
up in like a post-credit scene
Yeah.
or something like that, just to lead into What If. I'm like, I mean, I'm totally on board with that idea. I don't have reason to believe we'll see Jeffrey Wright in live action,
yeah,
but it's a total Marvel move.
yeah.
I mean, we see all these variants now, and this is why all this interconnectivity works, man. We just spent a month and a half, 2 months watching all these variants. So it's second nature that we're going to get 10 episodes of more variants. I would assume that's what they are,
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Before we wrap, I cannot let this episode end without saying Richard E. Grant. I don't know how I forgot to mention it. That scene where he builds Asgard, that is the best moment in a Marvel TV show so far on Disney Plus. Like the way it was shot, the music, the heroic entry, like that's the one that when they update the Marvel fanfare at the beginning of the movies, there should be a shot of Richard E. Grant like pulling his arms down and like the Asgard flying up behind him. That's the money shot that should be in that fanfare because I thought it was so cool.
Natalie Holt needs to score anything. The score's probably been one of the most consistent parts of the show, and I've enjoyed it much more than anything I can remember from the MCU so far in terms of music. No, that was just a phenomenal moment. You're right. And I wouldn't say it's probably my favorite out of the shows. The chaos magic line from Agatha, that's still hard to beat. But yeah, it's great, man. It was really good. We'll see what the finale is, man. 6 days. 1, 2, 3,
5.
4, 5. Holy cow. Even less by the time they get it. 3 or 4 by the time they listen. So it's it's coming quick, man. Then we get a little bit of a break that we'll have to switch over to food news desk again, right?
It's actually being timed perfectly that I am on vacation the week before What If comes out, so we'll probably take that week off.
Hell yeah, man.
But yeah, it's good. It's great watching a Disney Plus show on Wednesday and then getting a new movie the next day on Thursday and then a trailer. This is the content that we're starved of for so long. So
hashtag content. Don't say that too loud. People hate content. It's not artisanal enough.
They say that, but then they watch it. So
right.
All right. Thanks for listening to the show, guys. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Marvel News Desk. This show, like I said, we put this together, wanted to make sure we get it out, and we had travel schedules and stuff. So thanks for listening. It was a little unusual of an episode, but we'll be back next week to pull apart the very last episode of Loki. We'll see you then.